are going to be our fifth. This is our fifth summit, I think, that we're holding, and we have one more production summit coming up in October, hosted by Daniel Dybosky Bryant, and today we are here to discuss everything brand related as it relates to WebXR and the metaverse. And the purpose of these town halls before the summit is to really get some dialogue going between the audience members and some of the speakers that will be speaking at the summit next week, and to get some feedback and kind of like a baseline of understanding of, what we want to discuss during the summit, what our concerns are, what our questions are, just some comments to kind of fuel the discussions both today and at the summit. And we found this was a great way to get, more audience participation and that kind of back and forth dialogue that we don't really get to have at some of the one-way communication that we have during some of these other more traditional virtual events. So with that, I wanted to kick off the brand summit with my co-host, Julie Smithson, and all of the lovely Polly's WebXR Awards and Summit Series team in the background. You heard Ben's voice, and he'll probably come on and say hello as well. But Julie, I wanted to pass it on to you to say hi also.
Yeah, hi. Welcome, everyone. Thanks again for joining us today. I'm looking at this light. I'm not sure if it's quite working for me, so I apologize for the redness. I'm trying to some new studio stuff, but what better time to do it, right? Learning together. And that's what we talked about, in a few of our conversations with John Jering, who has joined us as well today, just about how brands are dealing with entering the metaverse, right? And we're all used to joining in these worlds. Like you and I join in XR Women every week, and as avatars, attending and learning about this space. And brands now need to figure out how to attach that consumer level to that same trend. And this is a trend that's going to continue as we start to build out the consumer exchanges of the marketplace and building out that transactional product for service and payment rails, and discussing all of the things about entering the metaverse and how do you bring a brand into the metaverse and have consumers follow that path. And we've got a huge journey ahead of us, and I think it's an exciting time to bring all of us together, and we can talk about opening the floor to anybody who is here and experiencing their position of bringing a brand or service or product to the metaverse. And that's what today is all about, is open conversation, and looking forward to having that with everybody here.
Yeah, so on that note, we, like Julie said, we do encourage people to come off camera when you can. I know some of you guys have us in the background, which is totally okay. But if you have something to add to the conversation or have a question for the rest of the group, please do come off camera if you want to, and just speak up. You're more than welcome to do a hand raise here if you'd like to indicate that, or just, quite frankly, just speak up in the conversation. This is supposed to be an open dialogue, and Julie and I are just here to facilitate that. So I just have some kind of opening remarks about my personal feelings towards brands and agencies in this space. So what I love about brands is that it overarches in every industry, and it indicates how a company is publicly seen and perceived, and ultimately driving consumer loyalty and engagement, which is the core of every business. Anything that we do in business revolves around being seen through proper branding and positioning in the marketplace. And so this is a really great place to start for businesses that are looking to gain a presence in the metaverse and trying to understand how to navigate that. Brands are always the first to invest in new, groundbreaking, innovative mediums to engage with customers. They're early adopters in XR. and that have already made the initial investments and have proven some of that ROI. And right now we're kind of seeing that they are now ready to make investments to scale. And WebXR is the perfect medium to help them do that. There's an opportunity to unlock like billions of dollars, and it's important to educate agencies so they can help convert brands in all of the industries that they support. So we need to show them the infrastructure in place for to achieve success in the metaverse. We've already seen top brands making major investments in long-term metaverse plays about how they'll be represented in these 3D spatialized contexts. And there's even internal investments in hiring key positions like chief metaverse officers. And we've seen brands like Gucci, Balenciaga, who hired a CMO, Nike, Clinique, Taco Bell, who I guess just built some kind of environment in the metaverse where they're encouraging people to get married there. I haven't experienced it yet, but it sounds pretty interesting. And then we're even seeing, traditionally like non-tech forward companies like Wendell, August, Forge, making investments in this space as well. And we'll be able to hear from them at the summit also. And then we also see that these investments can extend well beyond marketing purposes. We're seeing the investments in content developments on the marketing side being repurposed for training needs. So there's a lot of crossover in the usage of immersive content across departments. So it's important for us to educate people on all sides on how they can help leverage this spend beyond their initial investments in marketing and branding, and how this can help kind of infiltrate through these different use cases within their own businesses. So just some closing out remarks is, a big key factor of what the metaverse will evolve to become is the idea of unlocking this global virtual economy that is driven by transactions. Because no business is going to enter the metaverse unless there's some kind of ROI or ROX, as Julie termed, return on what is it, Julie?
Experience. Return on experience. ROX.
ROX. Nobody's going to make these investments unless there's a clear return on it. And so, starting with the marketing and branding side of things, as we saw like earlier on in the shift towards consumer adoption, I guess, in this technology, that's where the investments were being made. And so we want to use our agency partners and our brand partners as advocates for moving this technology forward. Because the brand involvement in this movement will help drive this evolution by casting a wide net onto the consumer population, and will drive adoption quicker and bring their trusted customers and fans with them into the metaverse. And then, we'll see a little bit of talk a little bit about this in our conversation next week. But what will also drive this evolution faster is by helping to drive the integrations of the crypto and NFT industry with XR. And I think we all are trying to figure out how that convergence will happen, but we know that that's a very important conversation to have. So with that, that's pretty much all I had to say in the beginning there. But again, please interrupt me at any point, interrupt Julie at any point to add to the discussion. Turn on your cameras, turn off or unmute yourselves, and come on and just say hi.
Yeah,
I'm not that.
Maybe just to kick off from what you said. Let's try and use the hand
Sure.
interactions, because then you put your face on and you put your hand up, and then it comes up in order for us to see. Perfect. So maybe just to kick off from what you're saying is that we need to bring brands into the metaverse, right? And what does that consist of? And this is a very big challenge right now, as companies, brands, enterprise companies are trying to figure out, okay, what does the metaverse entail? And you and I know it starts with 3D. It starts with 3D assets in the world, and you know, having avatars and having that marketplace and the digital assets. What do you do in the space? And you have to be able to have all of these elements, including what you're saying, you know, Web3 component of blockchain and NFTs. That's all part of it too. But you know, where do these brands start? And that's the big question, because even you and I, being in, you know, our experience here, putting a package together that includes all of this stuff is overwhelming. There's a lot of bits and pieces here. So where do brands start? Maybe that's a great question to just, you know, open the floor to. Who has experience with that? Where do brands start?
I mean, how many of you guys, I mean, it's a very vague question, but that is the key question that I'm sure all of us get is we want to be in the metaverse. We want to build a metaverse. You know, can you do that? How do we do that? What does it take to do that? And that's, you know, how do we answer those questions by helping to engage the brand or the agency a little bit more to help them think about what they should be thinking about? Eric, go ahead. You're on mute.
That's odd too. Quite oddly, way back in 1960, what am I talking about? Way back in the late 1900s, I was at IBM when they were beginning to do some of this work, and there were the first of the 360 cameras and some other tools. And the way they did it at IBM, which got people involved, was to go company by company and say, let's do a demo with you. And so I was using 360 cameras already in 1997 or 6 or so. And those were experiments, and some of them worked and some of them didn't work. Right now, I think that the most compelling and easiest way to get into the internet, 3D, Web 3.0, is through video, 3D video, 3D 180 video, 3D 360 video. I'm actually developing a website. I think that WebXR is the place to go and the thing to talk about rather than the metaverse, because there are problems with the concept of the metaverse. The primary problems being that it was invented in Snow Crash as a dystopian game inside a dystopian world. And well, I think that Zuckerberg has probably the best understanding of some of the things that it can do. The legacy is a legacy that can be problematic. And I think that it would be wiser to start with the branding and the concept of WebXR, which is simple, and video, which is easy to add to a website.
Oh, Sophia, you're now on mute, but I would agree with that too. Go ahead, Sophia.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, stories like Snow Crash and Ready Player One and all of those that kind of introduce a different way of thinking of what the possibilities of the metaverse could become. I think it's a great thing because it adds room for exploration and maybe a forward thinking kind of understanding of what we could aspire to. However, it could confuse people at the same time. It could be it's very dystopian. It's very futuristic. It's definitely not where we are today. So and to think about it in this grandiose idea of what it could become, you know, could dissuade people or make people or brands uncomfortable in investing now, because it seems like a lot and a lot of infrastructure that has to get behind making something like this come to fruition. But at the same token, we need to make them understand that they need to invest now, because it's stories like the Snow Crash and the Ready Player One, like that kind of set the stage for, you know, what we are kind of aspiring to, those types of instances. But I do think it is important to educate people on, you know, what a smart investment is now, and then how they can continue to scale that investment, and make sure that they know that whatever investments are being made now aren't going to become nascent as, you know, the capabilities of WebXR and the metaverse, you know, start to scale and evolve and those types of things. I think it's kind of that balance of comfortability there. And yes, 360 video is definitely an easy way in, because it's, you know, it's cheaper than investing in content and other types of content creation. And it's relevant to what they know now. So it's, you know, people relate a new thing to what they understand now. So sometimes creating that, I don't want to call it a digital twin, but it kind of is, I guess the first stages of digital twinning is 360 video. And it's directly related to what they know and understand now. And it's a lower cost investment. So yeah. But again, it's all based on utility. Like, how are they going to use that? That's going to drive that ROI. So I think whatever it is that we're suggesting, that has to be the mindset behind suggesting those things, whatever that might be.
What's old is new again, right? It's a great start for designing a concept in these worlds of digital twins. Take what's old, make it new, make it interactive. We've got some more people that have joined us. Welcome. Casey,
Welcome.
Zuri, thanks for showing your faces. Welcome. If anybody would like to jump in, we're trying to use the hand reaction and just to try to guide that, but it's open conversation here to share journeys, our journeys. And I see Zuri, go ahead. Yeah, please.
Hi, everybody. My name is Zuri Chavers. I'm starting a company, a volumetric production studio in the heart of Baltimore. I chose the idea of volumetric production because of what you were saying about digital twinning and how it kind of pairs the 360 camera with something that you, instead of using like a 360 camera, right? It's putting a real person into a digital environment. And I think that using the tools that are available, like gaming engines and you know, digital sculpting tools, are great ways to onboard people into this new space. And so just conceptualizing what it takes to build those digital assets and to create something, I think is important for brands to have representation there for people who are actually trying to create those assets and unique assets at that. But I also think that it's important to recognize the resources that are available as well. And there seems to be a ton of them. Like every day there's a brand new asset store where you can go and pick for free 1 million new assets and bring them. And if you have some game engine experience, bringing them into the editor isn't as challenging as it may have been a couple of years ago. So I think that a lot of people, the industry is moving together as the unit. It's cohesive. The evolution that we have isn't so divided that like people can't figure out a way to get in where they fit in. I just feel like it's a matter of placing emphasis on learning the software and having somebody who, and really choosing what direction you want to go in. Like, is your direction to use something that's already established? Is your direction to be creative and start really building towards what's important? But the software is here, and the people who are behind the software are doing what the gentleman said earlier, as far as making it accessible to people either at a low price point or for free. And so I just think that those are, you know, the primary building blocks to what you guys are aiming for as far as onboarding new brands to the metaverse.
Yeah, definitely. And when you get that question, Zuri, from your clients or your partners, what is your advice to them of, how do they start?
Well, work with us. That's the perfect place to start. Volumetric production, we lend ourselves to people, to brands particular who want to showcase their works. So let's say that you're like you have a food product, or you have a clothes product, or you have somebody that like it's a social type of component, and you just wanted somebody to digitally come and describe what they do or to build the scene. That like our company would be the best place to start. We can turn your work into a digital object, and now you own that object. And that what better way to brand? You can go from a 2D website to having a 3D presence in the VR setting or in the AR setting. You can place yourself wherever you like to be. And if you leverage WebXR, your website could literally just be yourself in the room with somebody describing what you do and what you enjoy. So yeah, working with Ultravision Studios would be what I tell people to do.
Well, I would like to ask you, because you work with volumetric production, right? So for a brand that is looking to produce content, what would your recommendation be on when it would be most appropriate to use, volumetric production capabilities versus building out graphic rendered content?
So one of the best things about volumetric production is, again, the fact that you're able to put yourself in the scene, and it doesn't need to be just one scene. You can put yourself in an AR environment where you're in the room with somebody, or you can put yourself into a gaming environment where the whole world around you is 3D and you can potentially interact with that world. It's a matter of discernment as to what your priorities are for your company, as well as what your priorities are for yourself. How, like, we would connect your brand, and we would put more emphasis on what your brand's goals are here in this space. Do you want to be accessible from the standpoint of, this is an example of my product, and I want you to have a 360 shot of my product, in which case you could potentially use LiDAR for that. You don't necessarily need a volumetric production studio for a product. But if you wanted to have something that's like a video, while at the same time you can spin it around and look at the proportions and have a digital avatar and it be you as opposed to a cartoon, or like as opposed to something that somebody created. Volumetric production is for that. But it's really about what the brand's goals are and what their ideology is. How deeply would you like to meet your customers?
Yeah, it's funny. I was just having this conversation with someone the other day of, back when I first started in this industry, like 6-7 years ago, we were, in convincing the customer to invest, everybody's like so focused on, graphic realism and those types of things with their experiences and headsets. But we are trying to tell them, realism in immersive environments comes from a lot more than just, graphic content. It, comes from the UX and UI and like all of these things that kind of add to the experience, different peripherals that add to the experience. However, when it comes to brands, and specifically like product oriented brands, I'd say it's become increasingly important to showcase what the product is really like in real life, because 3D is great and I talked about this with Hilti, actually. I think this was what it was. Yeah, and we'll showcase this case study at the summit, but it becomes increasingly important to showcase the product as it is going to be represented in real life. And, that's where things like LiDAR scans and volumetric become increasingly important, because we don't want to mislead the client or the customer into believing they're getting something when and it shows up, it looks like something else. And so in that case, graphic realism is very important. The whole point of being able to demonstrate or view something in 3D in immersive is to understand the product a little bit better and get closer to the product or service or whatever it might be. So we want to make sure that it's represented correctly. And I think specifically for this summit and for this audience, that again focusing on these scanning technologies are very important for some of their particular needs also. Yeah, Casey.
Hey guys, this is great. Thanks for doing it. It's great stuff. I think one thing you brought up that I'm finding dealing with a lot of agencies and brands right now is one thing is setting the right expectations up front. I think is a big thing we have to do as an industry. Because I think there is still, you've seen it further back, but there's still a view of what they think is expected and what's really expected and what can actually work. Right now we need to do things that's accessible to everyone, I think, and where everyone can come in and play no matter what device and be able to have a great experience. And I think also just trying to help people to understand that, finding the best, a lot of these heads of agencies and innovation folks that I'm talking to, it's really helping them sell throughout the organization as far as understanding the right use cases, the right clients that they have, and helping them build a story for that use case to help them push it through. So I think just education right now is so key, and being that sort of advocate to help them, because people in these positions, they want to do this stuff. They understand it. They know it's important, but they need help really trying to build this story for their agency or their brand to the right people that are going to take action on this. I think that's a big thing, and just pushing the importance of test right now. This is a perfect time to test and learn, and you don't have to go out and do some huge thing. You can really do smaller things where you can test and start understanding things, start building out. We all as industry got to figure out a lot of metric stuff right now and start coming up with ways that we are going to track these things, and outside of the basic world of ad tech, of what we've been used to. And so I think that's a big thing that I know I've been having conversations with is starting small, starting with tests. I think I'm finding a lot of people too, they like the idea of more of a private type experience, metaverse type private, where they can build something, they can have it from their website, they can more control over it for right now, invite the people they want into it, whether it's loyalty members or VIP members, so they can sort of, because they're not ready to jump out there in the Decentraland yet, they want to be able to control the experience a little bit more. So that's what I'm finding as well. And then, really pushing people to start building up 3D assets now. I think that's a big thing. That's, the more we can push to build out some of these assets and things now, it's just going to make life easier for them down the road. So anyway, so thanks.
That's a good point that you make, Casey, because again, this has been repeated in multiple discussions as well. And when brands and agencies and companies ask about, how do we prepare for the coming of the metaverse and these technologies, that is the first thing that I've been telling people is to digitize, all your assets and all your products. You can start right there. And we'll have and somebody else that I've talked to earlier, Cynthia Mahler from Walmart, she talks a lot about building that asset library, because it's important to think about the groundwork of what's going to be needed in order to scale, not only for marketing and branding purposes, but for other purposes throughout different departments within Walmart. And you don't want to kind of go back and rebuild when you have all of the key pieces in place to be able to start deploying some of these longer term strategies. Go ahead, Alan.
I think you're absolutely right. By starting the process of
I can't. Oh, there you go. Sorry. Go ahead.
even starting the process of understanding how to create 3D assets, whether it's from let's say for example, retail like Walmart would say, okay, here's our standards for 3D models and how we want them in GLTF in this exact format, this compression rates, all of these things, and provide that to the manufacturers of those goods and say, here, instead of just providing us with a video, a text description, and a 2D images, we also, in addition, want the 3D object. And so that's what Walmart's done, and they've kind of farmed that work out to their suppliers or their brands. Now, brands that have their own products, so for example, IKEA, I mean, every product that IKEA has a 3D model attached to it, and they use that for taking photographs. So the IKEA catalog and all photographs that you see of IKEA products are all digitally rendered. None of them are taken with real photographs anymore. They already have every product in 3D, so why aren't they, coming into virtual worlds and these sorts of things and creating like a virtual store of IKEA? Why are they not creating 3D instructions on how to install or build these furniture? Those are questions for those companies as well. They already have the assets. So I think there's more than just creating the assets. There's companies that already have all the assets. They just don't know how to leverage them across, training, customer support, marketing, and then on the website as well. So I think there's guidance to be had with, once you have the assets, how can you deploy them as many places as possible so that you're leveraging the original cost of those assets and leveraging them out over, maybe you want to bring something into Decentraland, you want to bring something into Unreal and film a commercial, maybe you want to just use photographs for your website for your 2D, and maybe you want to have a 3D configurator on your website. All of these things can be done with the same 3D assets, and I think that's important that once you create them in photorealistic, super beautiful 3D assets at the beginning, you can leverage them all the way down the metaverse pipeline.
Part of it's just getting these departments to talk to each other, because they don't, their budgets are silent. They don't talk to each other.
Not at all.
So it's our job to help them be more.
Do you know you don't have to recreate these things again, right? We already have 3 copies of them that were made over here.
I know. And Walmart actually started using, I think the original intent for them digitizing their assets. So Cynthia Mahler is the head of CGI at Walmart. And so the reason that she had started was to literally reduce costs and logistics of photo shoots of their products in different environments. So they're literally digitizing the products and then putting them in different environments to create their catalogs.
Yep, you can do 100 different photos with not one, we literally just click, move, take another photo, click, move, change the shadows, change the lighting. I mean, the tools are there now to do photo shoots, as long as it's products and you're not putting people in there, because then you do need people. But if it's just product shots, geez, man, you can do hundreds. You can even now with AI, they're going to be able to just set up the products and say, here, give me 1,400 different renditions of this. We'll test them on the website, and the ones that perform the highest, we'll just use those. Everything else will just drop. So it's a whole new world. The whole idea of product photography is going to be obsolete soon, and not only that, but also stock photography is going to be take a huge hit. I just wrote an article on 3 different technologies of the metaverse, and I was like, oh, I need a graphic. Oh, why don't I just use Midjourney? Typed in what I wanted, gave me a couple options. I went back, did another one, and then up-resed it, and now I've got novel art for my article that was made by AI.
Yeah, and it can be specified to a specific region. Also, you don't have to travel to Japan to have something that now resonates with them and their culture. When you can do it all digitally. And I saw Sean raise his hand. Hi, Sean.
Hi, everybody. I had an interesting question based off of what you guys are saying, what Alan was saying as well. If you take IKEA and you say, oh, they already have all these digital assets, why aren't they, doing more with them? I guess my question, more on the consumer side, or on, if I were to be in IKEA shoes, is at what would I do with it, and to what point, to what, I guess, extent? Because you can take that like super far down, including like what you were mentioning, Alan, is like having full 3D instructions for how to assemble this product, porting that into the metaverse and putting that over AR goggles, right? But I guess what a company might be looking for is like, how do they enter this world and what is the highest leverage that they can use right now? It might not make sense for them to go all the way that far at this point in time, right? So
I think you're bang on, Sean, and I think the value right now has been proven. If you use 3D assets to create photographs, and this saves the amount of time, that's a proven layer of ROI. Like, IKEA's already doing that at scale for every photograph. Walmart's doing the same thing. Amazon's doing the same thing. Everybody's moving to that product photography. That is a proven ROI, and I think this is where we really need to kind of come together. And this is why these conversations are good, because there's other proven ROI things that maybe people don't know about, such as just having a 3D configurator of a product on a website increases the time spent on the product, which ultimately increases conversion rates. I mean, this is known. Shopify released a thing that said up to 96% increases in conversion rates. I think
SEO.
Sorry, what was it?
Just SEO at the very minimum, right? Keeping people on the site.
Exactly.
Right.
Just keeping on the site, and conversion rates are higher. With training, retention rates are higher. So I think just showing the real ROI is the key. I mean, up until for the last 5 years prior to this, we've really been selling the sizzle, right? And like, hey, look how cool this is, and it's really exciting and it's engaging. But we didn't really have the data to back it up. Does it actually move the needle? Does it save money? And when somebody said, hey, you mean we don't have to hire a photo artist in every country because every country has slightly different things? We can just literally have a dude say, here, bring in the Danish pack, and it puts the environment, and I put the products in, and then there's my photographs for Denmark. And I bring in the Japanese one, I change the things, and there's my photo set for Japan. This saves hundreds of millions of dollars over time, I would think. Not having to have, now it also eliminates an entire category of photographers. This is, but it adds, a graphic artist. So I don't know. I think the proven ROIs are just starting to come out now across different things. I mean, we just had a case study with a medical device manufacturer in training and how to use the 3D assets for that. And then the marketing department's like, hey, can we use it over here as well? So even though they weren't talking to each other, they saw it and went, hey, can it be used over here? So,
and I think it's about like the promise of the future ROI and future uses as well. It's like, this is what you hired us for. But it's a lot of what we do in this industry is be consultants as well. We're not just producers and executors on what a client wants, because a lot of times they don't even know.
Psychologist.
But yeah, a psychologist, exactly. But it's like, okay, like, we hear you. This is what you want to do, and this is what kind of the immediate budget is allocated for. But we want to also let you know that here are the other ways that you're going to be able to use this content and these assets down the line. And we want to continue to work with you to continue to educate you and your colleagues, cross department, whatever, on how you can, scale these efforts in this investment. So we don't want to scare them out of all these grandiose ideas necessarily, but I think it's equally important to educate them so they can move forward in confidence that, okay, there's a lot more coming down the road than what we're initially investing in right now, and we can be confident that these investments are being made for good use.
Right, and I think it's got to be that balance, right, of having the very concrete ROI piece in the beginning that kind of leads people in and gets the bite, but then also that vision piece at the end that keeps them going for the long haul.
That's a great way to position it. Awesome.
No, awesome, yeah.
But I think it's really cool, Alan, what you were mentioning. There's a couple of things now that these pieces of ROI are coming on board and they're becoming more and more concrete. I mean, I can see a little pamphlet, coming out, or a little catalog saying all right, you want to get into the metaverse? Here's your starter pack. The first 5 things you want to do that will prove concrete ROI. And that might be a huge help to companies.
Hey, Jewel, what did you just create? You just showed it this morning. Literally this morning, you showed us, what was it?
I created a new acronym. It's called the POX, P-O-X, Proof of Experience. That's what we need to do with every single brand and company right now, is to do POXs.
We literally came up with it exactly. Said, look, you don't know what to do? Start here. It's 50 grand. It's within your budget. And here it is, an experience. It can reside on your website. It can reside offline. You can share with your, people. You can have it in the mall if you want, whatever. And here it is, like the very basic thing. Will create something for you that is meaningful, that you can go and test with your customers, with your executives, whatever. Here it is. And you don't have to think twice about it. You deal with everything from asset
I think
creation
this
to
is,
environment to avatars.
yeah, it's a solution. Yeah, smallpox, Abby. Smallpox, that's right. But yeah, I really think, and this is where we could probably steer this conversation to, like, where does a company start building this stuff? And 3D, just so you guys know, I'm doing my sense making in the background. If you see me staring off, it's into another screen. I'm doing some sense making like I do at these summits. I'll share at the end with you, Sophia, and the rest of the group. But the 3D assets seem to be like the big thing right now. And one thing I always talk about with the clients is, has a brand or company considered what their brand looks like in 3D? Let's start there, and trying to help them build spatial awareness and design. And that's a key component. And I've always been, that's always been my mantra of education, is like spatial learning, 3D design. The spatial part, people don't, they're still used to 2D linear screens, books, paper, signs, TVs. We have to get them to start to think with depth. And let's start with your brand. If I was to land in metaverse, what would it look like in front, behind, all the things, right? So, that's a good conversation starter. And we've actually stopped conversations at that point, because they go, oh, I haven't thought about that. Ask a brand, what does their logo look like in 3D? And again, this is a great, there's a great fireside chat next week with Benno Urquhart from Hilti. And we helped build his company's brand into 3D. And, started to, what does the 3-dimensional design look like of the logo and the color palettes? When you start to add textures into spaces, it changes the reflection on others. So, a red could start to turn black if it's too metallic.
What bevel angle does your logo go in 3D?
Right. So, starting to think about that, that's a conversation starter right there, and how to get brands to start to think about, if I landed in a 360-degree world of your brand, what would it look like? What does it look like behind me, in front of me? And then you go into, what do I do in that space? Like, how do I interact with the brand? What are you going to get me to learn? What can you share? What can I do with this this piece? Bye, Sean. Take care. Thanks for joining. But yeah, maybe we open the conversation there. Sophia, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, that use case is really, really, really cool, because it definitely gets people, or the brands, or whatever, to start thinking about how they apply different standards in the other environments that they're going to be building out. And there's a piece in there about audio even, and it shows like the audio waves of what dialogue should look like, or what the audio should sound like, or whatever, in 3-dimensional spaces. Just things that you never even would think about without visualizing it this way.
Mm-hmm. Daniel's here. Look at that.
Yeah. Oh, hi, Daniel.
Hi. Hi. I was listening to Julie speak then about POCs. I love it. I was thinking proof of experience in terms of brands and marketing. It becomes even more important to think, how do you want your customer to feel? We're already asking that when you watch an advertisement, you open a magazine, you watch a video, whatever, for a brand or advertising, and now you're going into a space. It is totally ours, or the developer's responsibility, to figure out how they're going to feel. User experience in a spatial situation, I wouldn't want that job. I have a lot of respect for people who get it right, but I imagine we're going to see a lot of examples where it's not quite right or really wrong. you know, where you're just taking 2D thinking, trying to apply it to a space, and because you don't have the experience, you don't have the guidance, then what your brand ends up with is not quite there. Just a thought.
Very thought provoking there, because we're trying to, force these brands into this public space of meeting. And, we haven't even talked about multiplayer communications yet, but that's the next step, right?
Yeah.
Adding an avatar into the system, and then starting that conversation with others. There's data that's already being tracked right there, right?
Yeah.
So, brands and companies are having to think about all of these things if they start to build out these experiences, and that's a lot to think about. Hi,
Yeah,
Molly.
right. Because if you're just bringing somebody to a website, you can control that experience. A, we have a lot of experience, and B, it's not a space, it's just pages. You can control the journey a lot, you control the experience a lot, you can control where they come back to it. Put a user in a space, you can't control where their eyes are going to go. Well, I imagine you can. With the right people, you design it in a way where you build in a story and a journey, I imagine, right? You want them to spawn in a particular place, have a certain trigger, but designing for that kind of experience in a spatial sense, I'd be really curious to see some really good examples of that.
Yeah, and now we have the tools to be able to track that as well. And we do have a panel on metrics, XR, and what that means also.
Cool.
Hey, Molly, nice to see you. It's been a while. It's been like years.
I know. So great to see you.
Thank you. Yeah, I've been kind of MIA taking care of my mom. But I piggyback on Daniel's thought of how it makes you feel, because during this whole journey with taking care of my mom, I had been working on a small project for a best friend and her mom, and it just so happened that I ended up using it for mine because she was deathly afraid of having an MRI. And I convinced the technician and the doctor to go in with her, and I created like this 360 of her apartment with her dogs, because she loves her dogs, and that was what would comfort her. And so I was able to go into the MRI room with her and have a headset, and have her have a headset to calm her down, looking at her dogs, so that she could get through the MRI. And then afterwards, I did like this little, it was kind of like quick and cheesy, but a little mock-up for augmented reality on the end, so that she can feel like the dog was sitting on her after she was done. So kind of like a reward. But yeah, it's the way it made her feel. And I think that when brands have a service or a product, then most likely it's going to be, how did that make you feel? Because that's going to bring in the emotion and the impact and the memories of, God, I had that first Coke, and it was in augmented reality, or it was in virtual reality in space, and I was at Burning Man. And so it brings in that quality of the time, the memories of how everything makes you feel. So I think that would also be a good strategy to lean on. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think from there, that's where you start to gamify things. And this goes, takes that step into the user journey, and, tapping into emotions or not, you have to figure out what those interactions are that are the user's going to do in that space to keep them there. And then you have to get them to come back, right? So this is that gamified component that brands and companies need to figure out how they attach that to a reward, that, and then we can go into NFTs and blockchain and stuff, but that reward will have them return back, and I'm going to go and do that experience again, or try a second time, right?
And I also learned too that it's also about the trust of the doctor and the technician trusting me, and then the trust of the patient being my mom. So it's that trust, and it all ties in with the emotion and the feelings and what is it, you know, because my mom, she's totally computer illiterate. And it's like, I don't want to put that thing on. That looks scary. What's it going to do? But once she did it, it was like a calming sensation. It was like, oh. And so I had to get the buy-in and the trust from the technician and have him try it. So it's that part of the training as well. So
Yeah, yeah, and on that note, it's important to also understand where, you know, where your consumers and audience are at right now and what they're ready for. You don't want to you don't want to do too much too soon, even if the capabilities are out there, um, because it could again detract people from, especially different generations of people or in different demographics of people, um, to enter in these spaces and engage with these spaces. So it has to be easy enough, um, and attractive enough and relevant enough for people to engage with these spaces. And again, that's another reason why I love the web for this medium, because it just makes it that much easier to, um, get non-tech natives, I guess, into these spaces and interacting with these mediums. So if we can position it as it's just another website, you know, it's just a more fun, more engaging website. We all like to do e-commerce and shop virtually and all those things anyways. Let me just show you how to make it that much better. So I definitely think it's definitely important to keep your audience in mind when thinking of these strategies, because you know, just because the tools are out there and the capabilities are out there does not mean that it is the right strategy for you, your brand, and your audience. Um, Zuri, you have your hand up. Oh, Zuri's hand is down.
I think
Okay,
that was for Avi's
Can you
there.
hear me? Can you hear me? All right, awesome. Yeah, I'm sorry, I switched computers.
Very
But
good.
what I was just going to chime in with is that I think that physical stores have an interesting advantage in this space because they already know what their world looks like in 3D. And because the brands already exist, it will give them like a tactical advantage to see how they can improve to touch their customers in a more personal and customized way. I liked how you brought up the demographics and the consumers and the audience. I think that ties in directly with the haptics as well, because you know, depending on who you are, you might enjoy a more free flowing environment where your movements are a lot more like, you know, quicker, or you have a physical advantage that you might not have in the real world. So the world building there is really important. Also see that like again, I talk about physical stores, but a lot of these stores have limitations. So when we're thinking about world building, you know, using ideas like Disney World, you know, like some of these major theme parks or a larger than life experience that could capitalize on the existing traits of a brand, but then bring them into the next dimension by heightening the experience. I think is a wonderful opportunity for these people who are already kind of established to deepen that customer experience. And to be honest, I think that's a reward in itself, especially from a VR perspective, because of the way that it plays on memory. It will be something that is just memorable because you felt different, you moved different, and the world was accommodating to you in ways that it wasn't in the real world. So yeah, I'm really excited about this space for those reasons.
yeah, and you know, speaking of the brick and mortar, we also have to educate and let you know, these brands know that that doesn't mean it's the death of, we're not suggesting that it's the death of the brick and mortar, but we are here to help evolve what that might mean in today's environment, using with leveraging these different technologies. You know, how do we leverage XR and the metaverse to not only drive revenue, but maybe bring people in? Because the whole point of, you know, these technologies is not to have siloed experiences anyways. You know, we want people to engage with the environment, but also with each other That's the whole point. That's why people love, these technologies so much, is because we can drive more engagement on a global scale. But then also bringing it back to, okay, like, how do we engage people in the real world as well, utilizing these technologies, and kind of drive this holistic brand strategy using all of these different tools in our tool belt, of which XR or the metaverse might be one of them. So I think it's also important to just ease people's cautions or fears um, about the potential of transitioning their entire company onto these mediums. But we need to let them know that that's not the case at all. We're not near the era of fully virtual anyways. Second of all, there is a place for brick and mortar, for location-based experiences, and engagements, and we just have to figure out with them what that means to redefine the brick and mortar experience. Because e-commerce has already taken over a lot of um, that revenue drive from a product perspective, I guess. But so it's important to keep iterating and evolving that, but also, again, how do we reimagine what is the place for in real life experiences, and how do we drive people there? There's a really cool case study that a company I used to work with did for AT&T for their storefronts that sold devices. AT&T, I think, is an investor in Magic Leap. They also own Warner Brothers and all the properties underneath of that, including like Bugs Bunny franchise and those types of things. And they obviously sell their telecom, so they were trying to prove the value of or the power of 5G networks. And so, while trying to sell their devices that will be capable or enabled to be able to support that. And so they were utilizing, their mobile devices, the Magic Leaps that they had in store, along with some of the content that they have ownership of with, Bugs Bunny, and utilizing, their 5G network to showcase basically spatial anchors within their store, and how all these different devices can kind of talk to each other and view these different um, this different content, this Bugs Bunny content from all of these different angles simultaneously. And so that was a really cool example of a place-based activation that utilized these technologies, and brought people to the store to be able to do that. So that's just one example there, but again, helping them reimagine what the place is for a brick and mortar as well, so they don't feel like they're, like they have to transition their whole business right away. Go ahead, Avi.
Hi, I would like to expand on the idea of Julie, where she was mentioning about the boxes, and thinking more about it. I think there are going to be 3 types of boxes. One is just creating a spatial experience itself. Like, for example, there's an app called Immersive, where you can have multiple screens on you, in front of you, and then you can interact with the PC. That is just a single player box. And the second type is something called a lightweight multiplayer, like MMORPG, but then the number of users are not going to be too many, only a few people. For example, I am shopping for a product on Amazon, and you are shopping for a product on Amazon, and then before buying, we both can talk to each other. So this experience right now is not enabled in any platform. And the third one is the actual big one, which brands would actually be interested in. That would be the MMORPG style, wherein you have a lot of people coming together, and then they either attend an event. This was done as experiments, like a concert events earlier. But then they require, I think Matthew Ball, he describes in his book that this is a very challenging one because it requires a lot of technology, and web browser technology has its limitations. When we say WebXR technology, we need to see this sort of MMORPG experiences, which probably brands would be interested in because they want to do mass marketing, would be more applicable uh, for massive players. So even if you see Roadblock supports only concurrent 100 users, and there was a Second Life which maxed out at 500 users. So there is a limit with respect to technology. So how much browsers can play a part in that is questionable, because if you see all the clients like Roblox, like Fortnite, they're all thick clients. Yeah, that's the point. Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, those are all reasonable concerns. Yeah, and again, not every medium is made equally, and there are there are use cases for each. It really depends what the goals are of the client. It depends what the audience is. It depends what they're trying to achieve. What the capabilities of that particular platform is. Even within the web, there are many different platforms that have different levels of capability, and they're good for one reason or another. So it really just depends on what the goals are. Yeah, Julie, did you have something? No.
Yeah, no, I was just I was gonna join in on that thought just of the collaboration piece and the multiplayer and the communications. That's another extended piece of this, how brands need to create communities out of their loyalty programs. I think that's a foundational piece of figuring out what the journey is going to be like for the user in the space. I think that brands have a lot of soul searching to do in how they will approach that, and coming back to conversations that that we were having before with Molly on the trust, and having places of open collaboration or communication with your client. That's another really big piece of and I think this is a hybrid version of how brick and mortars can overlap into these worlds, is by having these multiplayer and real-time communication pieces that offer, open up your webcam and let me talk to that customer client about the brand. If somebody wants to know something more about a beauty product, here you can talk to the AI assistant, or you can talk to a live person, because that ability is possible. Trying to seam these worlds and build out the communication with your the consumer, and attaching that piece of communication is going to be so important, whether it's onboarding them or sending out an email invite to their store. The communication and that piece is going to be important to build the trust.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to call on Elijah if you're there. Elijah's going to be presenting next week at the summit.
Hey,
Elijah.
sorry. Hey.
Hey.
Didn't expect to be called upon. Hi. I'll leave my video off for now because sorry, go ahead. I interrupted.
No, I mean, you're going to be presenting Zesty Market at the summit next week. Can you give us a little overview of what to expect?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is like the brand and marketing summit, but we have been in that space for quite a while, and just because WebXR is so focused on the the VR hardware side of things, and it's been cool to see the growth of the Quest 1 and 2. I think when we entered the market, it was at maybe 1 to 2 million headsets, and now we're seeing 14 million headsets out there with the Quest 2, and so that's been good to see. But the earliest advertisers in the hardware category right now are other VR games, other immersive experiences and apps that want to get discovered and exposure in the market. So it's interesting that kind of in general, this conversation, I think we touched on multiplayer and customer kind of interaction and avatars and kind of AI. We'll touch on that a little bit, just around a new kind of interactive game that we've been building that has multiplayer and has voice chat involved. And so it's been pretty interesting for us, just from a developer point of view, to be able to talk to the people that are entering the virtual spaces that we've been building inside the headsets. And I think over the past 2 weeks, we've gotten 2,000 to 3,000 users just popping by, and through our kind of ad network that we've built out with the help of the content that's already on Construct Arcade and has been built out with Wonderland Engine. So sorry, that's kind of a ramble there, but it'll be more focused on, I think, on the user discovery, the customer discovery side, and less on the just purely advertising side, because when you think about VR, that's where you get the most benefit. It's from the presence, being able to actually talk to your customers and actually understand what it is that they want when they're inside the headset. And you need to give people a reason to go in the headset. And one of those, I think the best reason is probably social. Social shopping is really, really fun. But we haven't really seen products that have actually executed on that yet. So yeah, I'm excited to present.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. We're excited to hear you. I have in one of my presentations, I had uncovered some statistics on user preferences of why they go into these immersive mediums. And there's a lot of stipulations of, technology is driving us further apart and it's making us more isolated and all of those things. However, and these studies that are coming out, like you were saying about Elijah, about the socialization aspect, that's a huge piece, and we see that a lot. That's people always ask, is it multi-user, is it multiplayer, and that's a big reason of why they do enter these spaces, is to be able to have more collaboration and socialization between their peers and people they don't even know, and build a global community that we have never been able to do before. Plus on the brand loyalty side, when you create, and this is what social media really was created, it wasn't necessarily created for this, but this is how brands are utilizing it, is when you create these communities of people that are kind of rallying around this brand, have these things in common, revolving around this brand identity. It kind of builds the confidence of those people that this is a brand that they want to be affiliated with, because I'm now affiliated with these people who are relevant to me. And so it kind of helps build that brand loyalty by bringing other people together that are relevant to the brand, or engaged or loyal to the brand. So being able to host an environment where people can do that is going to become increasingly important to help them build these personal relationships revolved around your brand and the things that you can do in your brand metaverse land. And then also, if, from a developer standpoint, it perhaps reduces the amount of legwork that you have to do in creating interactables as well. Just put people in the same room together at the very least, the easiest standpoint, I'd say, is you want interactions, and it doesn't have to be with with just assets, bring people in a room together, and let them do things together and look at things together and experience things together. And that's a good step forward.
I think that was kind of like the driving reason why XR Women worked so well. For our community, we're hitting almost our 100th event in a couple of weeks. We've been going strong for 2 years, and every week we come together as avatars and we learn from each other. Like, it's been an amazing thing. And that collaboration piece, and just standing in a room as an avatar, being able to talk to Sophia and the rest of our community, how awesome is that? We don't interact with anything while we're there, except we may dance a little, but it's fun, right?
Yeah, Eric, go ahead.
Okay, I can. So I have a question really for everybody. 2 parts. The first part is general, and is, what do you hear about or know about or think about pre-brand, pre-project visualization education? Just people learning about what is going on in the field of extended reality, and so that people know what the language is and what the different things are and the options are. So aside from specific projects, and with specific projects, I have a question, which is, what hardware are people targeting at? Are you looking at people that have a Quest? Are you looking at general VR as it's coming with a couple of other headsets coming to market? Are you looking at present, at the future? Are you looking at, are brands looking at iPhone AR? Are they looking at any of the current or future brands that have a real mixed reality system, like Snap spectacles or whatever might be coming from Apple, and what Microsoft is going to do in the future? Who are you targeting as the audience? And how do you educate the audience before you pose it, even before you think about a particular project?
Yeah, it's not just, who are you targeting, but how are you going to deploy it? Deployment. It's the deployment that you really need to think about. And you're right. Is it headset? And who has the headsets? Is it mobile device? Oh, there's 7 billion 3D enabled devices out there. That if you can make it work on a web browser, then that's your gateway. You start there. To get the mass amount that's out there. Hi, John.
Hey, John.
Floor is yours. Go ahead and unmute.
Many thanks. I was kind of keeping quiet because I don't have hands-on experience with these things. But then he asked, what are people hearing? And the journalist has arrived. I know that a lot of people that I talk to that are doing branded things or are making branded experiences for companies are thinking very much about the social media aspect of AR, particularly as it gets into kind of virtual try-on. Some of us that were here earlier were kind of chatting about this, but I feel like that too is how a lot of the brands that are getting into AR, VR, that's kind of their introduction to the terminology. As Rothman mentioned, the idea of there being all of those connected devices is an immediate kind of attachment. And then that can also be the kind of segue for a lot of these people into more advanced virtual worlds, if that's the direction that they eventually go in. I was talking this morning with a mate who works with companies. He has a tool for taking even just like 2D images, and he has an AI program that he runs into to turn them into assets that can work on models, or it can work with CAD designs of clothing companies are using that kind of thing. And he says that a kind of informal part of his job is informing these companies about their kind of indirect access to the metaverse if they decide. We were talking about repurposing assets earlier, the idea that now that you have this thing that you created for this one specific use case, there are a lot of things that you can do with a 3D model. So these brands in particular are thinking about people are going to see this on social media. They're going to share it with their friends to get their friends' opinion or whatever. So that's maybe kind of their first step. They don't know whether they might not be thinking about a second step, but that's how a lot of companies that I talk to are kind of getting into this space for the first time. And that's my bit.
Yeah, and it's really interesting. And it is interesting to hear your perspective because you do have hands-on experience, talking to a lot of people that are dealing with the same thing, both on, on the developer side as well as on the client side. So it's really interesting to hear that perspective. Elijah, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think just coming from like the demographics of, I think to answer Eric's question earlier, I think just from the STK data that we're collecting across roughly 200,000 users that are accessing WebXR experiences, we see most of the hardware come from the Quest 2. That's where most people are accessing it from. Roughly, I think 10,000 to 20,000 visits across, the WebXR content that's at least featured in the new tab page in the meta browser every day. And then there's some from the Pico Neo 3 that's out in the European market, and I think we're hearing some buzz about the Pico coming into North America, which should be good for kind of just the VR space in general. But just from our experience with having with starting to direct traffic into Robot Rally, the game that the multiplayer kind of voice chat enabled game that we're working on. Most of the people that we talk to are quite young, just from demographically. It's usually the kids that don't get as motion sick playing FPS games inside VR. And so I think the demographic generally skews very young, but for games like perhaps like Walkabout Mini Golf, that's doing pretty well in the App Store. That's somewhere between like probably the millennials, like Gen X kind of skews that way. So I think on the browser side, not a lot of people know that there's like content that you can play in the browser when you're inside the Quest 2. So I think just starting there, like improving the awareness that there is like quite high fidelity and fun and interactive experiences that people get used to, and then on top of that, you can start layering it in more natural like brand interactions. So I think we're a little bit what we're seeing just from the ground floor is like it's a little bit early, I think, just from the Quest. Like if you want to just purely like talk about like the Quest 2, it's a little bit early to bring in the brands into the WebXR, just because the audience size or the number of impressions that we get across our billboards is like maybe only it's like not in the millions that we see like half a million per month. And I think for brands to get really, really excited and for them to, start getting FOMO is when other brands start doing it. And also, I think when that number goes into the millions, hopefully that happens soon.
Well, I mean, so when brands come to you and ask you for your advice on how to get involved and how to set themselves up for success in the metaverse, like what is your answer to them?
Yeah, I mean, I think it really depends on who it is that they want to talk to, who it is that they want to reach. We kind of, one of the brands that we've been working with is a company called Rebuff Reality. They make, they're an e-commerce store for VR accessories. So like they make battery packs. So we're not talking to the McDonald's or the Wendy's of the world just yet. I think it's a bit early for that. But when we talk to these smaller kind of e-commerce stores that run operations, and they want to target people inside the VR headset, the first thing that they're most interested in is just getting exposure. Like they want to be seen and noticed by people who have the Quest 2 because they want to sell to, they're making accessories for and battery packs for the headset. And so I think people don't know how to create assets that convert well inside WebXR just yet. Sometimes they'll put in too many words into a poster, and it takes people too long to read, and there's no clear call to action. that leads them to, you know, their e-commerce experience that they built out, which was actually an immersive VR experience. So we encourage the kind of the link outs from our existing billboards to go to also be going to some sort of immersive experience, because people tend to spend longer periods of time. Retention is better. The session lengths are longer, and people are willing to spend time in there. Probably becomes more interesting if there are other people that they can see shopping around that location as well. So yeah, we recommend use less words for your poster, for your billboards. Try and link them out to another immersive or WebXR experience. And make sure that that they're able to convert from that VR experience, because payments is still pretty tough inside the browser. So
yeah, I mean, all 100% true. I was gonna say something kind of important. I
Hey, Sophie, yeah.
Yeah. So much to say, so much. Yeah. Oh yeah, killer app. It's the killer app. As much as gamification is important in these experiences to keep people engaged, keep people wanting to come back, all of those things, there has to be utility to everything that we do. I mean, unless you're a native tech user, or you're just an early adopter, or you're a gamer, you like these things and then the novelty of these things. That's one thing, and those aspects definitely have to be there in these experiences, the gamification of it. However, for all the grandmas in the world and whomever else, these different demographics that use technology when there is a reason to use technology, we have to be aware of that too, because again, a brand isn't going to invest in just all the fun stuff to just have people on their website. There has to be an end game to this, and that end game also needs to resonate with the consumer as well. There needs to be a reason why this is making their shopping experience better, for example. And there needs to be that utility aspect to it, especially when we're talking about mass adoption. There needs to be a utility to it. Like I always talk about, when the smartphone came out, the iPhone, for example. I mean, it was out for 4 years before I got my first iPhone, but I was playing on my friend's iPhone, playing the games and some of the apps that were out there. But like back in the early days, content was just produced for the sake of content. We were still trying to understand what we're going to do with this new medium of technology. And, now fast forward 10, 15 years of having these devices out, we couldn't imagine our lives without them. Why? Because of the utility, not because of the novelty cool factor, because this actually provides some real value in our day-to-day lives. And that's what's going to keep us upgrading to the new phone. Every time iPhone or Apple puts out their new hardware and prices it at a ridiculous amount, it's because there's utility there, and we will buy it. Even if we don't need it, we'll still buy it. Every upgrade.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Who else
So
yeah.
well, I had somebody else. So I saw some chat happening in the chat with Jonathan Hale. And so I'm going to call him up because he is the software of the year Poly winner for Wonderland Engine. So Jonathan, welcome. Thanks for being a loyal Polys and WebXR Summit Series advocate. Thank you and welcome.
Yeah, thank you. I don't know, we've just been discussing, someone recognized the ConstructorCade, and I was really happy about that. Mark, one of the CEO of ConstructorCade, is actually in the chat here. And I actually helped launch ConstructorCade 4 years ago, and it was effectively what led me to found Wonderland Engine afterwards, because in building like a set of games for WebXR with like all sorts of frameworks, we kind of realized that the tooling was missing for WebXR experiences and was making it really, really difficult to kind of build these kind of native quality and native scopes of VR and AR experiences. And so we basically set out to build a engine that is designed from the ground up for web and with performance in mind on Oculus Quest and on all the other devices, right? Because with WebXR, the nice thing is that you can have all of the devices at once and even do cross XR experiences. So you can have someone joining from the phone with someone in an AR headset and a VR headset all in the same space and sharing a multiplayer experience on the web. And no other platform can do that as easily. You usually would have to deploy 5 different experiences for 5 different devices, right? And so I think that web in general just has so much potential, but it just is locked up in developers currently not being able to conveniently build experiences and having to fiddle too much with optimization and like low-level WebGL work, because the frameworks have previously only been used for product visualizations and not stereo, like large-scale scenes rendering. And so that's what Wonderland Engine is focusing on and trying to provide a nice developer experience, kind of like Unity is able to provide, but specifically for the web and only for the web. And yeah, I guess that's Wonderland Engine in a nutshell.
Yeah, absolutely. Which is, hence why you won a Poly at the Poly's WebXR Awards, because you are helping to increase, the adoption from a developer perspective, a creator perspective, to be able to develop on the web. So we appreciate that. Mark, did you wanna come up and say a few words since you were called out? We all need to play your game, apparently. Hi.
Hi, guys. Nice to meet you. Nice having me. Thank you very much. Yeah, Constructor Kate. Thank you very much for Jonathan for actually founding that and having the idea of Constructor Kate. And I was very glad to join the team, I think 1 year ago. And I'm coming more from the side of a marketer. So for VR right now, the topic is brands, how they get in VR and the metaverse, and how do we get investors interested in brands in the metaverse. For me, what I realize is the mobile, the 2D world and the 3D world is, in my opinion, a little bit too much divided. Like, how do we target, for example, actually VR users? It's like with Google Ads or something. So they type in the search bar VR games, but they don't have the VR headset on their head. So they come on the 2D side where you can play, for example, WebXR games, but they can't just play it now because they don't have their headset with them. So this is one big issue right now, in my opinion, to target a lot of people who have actually VR headsets. So I think Elijah, what he's doing with Sesti ads, that's a very, very good step to actually get the people who have their headset right now on their head, to target them and to get there in the next experience, and ongoing and experience the whole VR world. And also this is what we are trying with Constructor Kate, to get them a place where they can enjoy the WebXR, the VR world. And this is probably the way how to interact with brands in the metaverse, to make them realize how they can target their target group in the metaverse.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you post a link to your game in the chat so we can all take a look? That'd be awesome.
The Constructor Kate is actually like a publishing platform, right? So if you know the web game websites where you have like thousands of free games to play, then Constructor Kate is basically one of those, but just for VR. So you can play games. Usually, a lot of them are actually featured on the Oculus Quest new tab page. So if you open the browser for the first time, you click on one of the games, and then often you land on Constructor Kate. And the games have been built by many different developers. So that's usually not Constructor Kate actually building the games. That was just like in the very beginning, we had to do that because no one wants to join an empty platform, right?
Okay.
So now though, it's like many different experiences using many different frameworks, of course, Wonderland Engine, but also A-Frame and 3GS and all of these other frameworks. Many of them monetized through Zesty ads, and that's also like one of the reasons why people like jump from experience to experience, because they are able to basically travel like through portals, through Zesty ads, and get to the next experience.
I love it. We might have to do a live demo of that during one of the summits or the Polys Awards. That's really cool. It's a cool concept. And again, like monetization is key for any business or any person that's investing in, you know, building out these on these frameworks and with these technologies. So you know, this infrastructure that you guys have put in place is an important use case, you know, to point at for brands and people that are looking to build, saying, you know, we know that this is important. It's an important aspect to be able to monetize your content, and we've thought this through, and here's an avenue to do that. You know, that isn't owned by a mega tech company. Zuri, go ahead.
Hi, everybody. Now that I hear more about everybody's independent companies and stuff, I just wanted to know what each one of you guys can say about getting it up and running, like your early days, what you did to get a foothold in this industry for your brand, and how that has worked for you so far.
Yeah. Anyone?
I would say community, like, and I'm speaking from being in this industry since 2016. And I think our brand, which if I didn't say at the beginning, my company is called Metaverse. We called our name Metaverse way back in 2016, way before Mark called Metaverse last year. Ironic, I know, but a little bit of a different spelling. But I think that us being in the space and understanding all the different components that it takes to build an experience, right from the, you know, creating 3D assets to the deployment and how you're deploying it. That's where it starts and that's where it ends, right? So having your beginning and end game. But I think the success of our company and just how long we've been around for draws back to community and being able to, you know a lot of you and, you know, learning from everybody, joining those communities, the associations, and don't do it alone. Find your partners, find your people. And, you know, no company's kind of doing it all. So it's really important to find those strategic partners right now that can support. However, I'm also a big believer on, if you've got a laneway, stay in your laneway. Don't do it all, because it's so much. So that's just a little bit of my advice. Jonathan, how about you?
Well, I was actually quite young when I started going into like my own company thing, and the beginning was difficult because, I mean, as you can imagine, like 4 years ago, sorry, the light is here, a little inconsistent. 4 years ago, it was really difficult to monetize with WebVR. WebVR was basically in a state where you had to update your games every 2 weeks, otherwise they would break, because the browsers would update the API, and you would have to adapt your experiences. But that was just like a ton of work, and so usually you would just like try to bootstrap it and do like contract work. Nowadays, that's a lot easier because there's like so much demand for people that know how to build WebXR experiences and build like AR web experiences. It's like a huge market, has grown, especially like powered by 8th Wall and such. That's like, it's AR is just like super popular through the smartphone. And VR, thanks to the Quest and even back then the Oculus Go, basically just like took like huge leaps along the way. And it's really amazing to like now actually be able to go through that, and like all of that kind of grit over the years was really worth it. And I think like if you're starting now in WebXR or in VR and AR for the web, then just stick to it. I think we're still in the early days, and I think it just like the people that like help build the industry, like all of us here, are gonna like be the most sought after in the end. So just like stick around, stay here, and build awesome stuff.
Just keep building. Keep building and keep building within the community, stay in touch with the community. You know, that's why we're doing what we're doing with these summits and the WebXR awards coming up in February, is to advocate for these mediums and to educate on them, because we know that, you know, immersive technology is already in itself a very bespoke niche industry, which is gaining traction. But then within that, you know, the immersive web, even people within our own industry, you know, they're just starting to, you know, understand kind of where things are going with the web. And in my opinion, the true capabilities of a metaverse, or what we aspire for a metaverse to be, kind of lives on the web. And so these conversations are definitely necessary to keep having. Yeah. I wanted to just say hi to Celeste, just because we love her. And and she's also been a friend of the whole groups, I'm sure more than, you know, just us for a while. And she's actually going to be presenting at another event next week that I'm a part of, called Reality Innovators Network, on Wednesday. She's going to be doing a DJ set on Wednesday. So,
and do you want to do a little bit of an intro, Celeste? Welcome.
Oh, hi everyone. It's been a busy morning, so bear with me. I work with Dreamland XR, and we've got a bunch of different projects bubbling, including Meta Cities and a couple exciting events that we're working on with the Immerse Global Summit, Meta Music Festival that's going to be like a hybrid in Miami, and Metaverse. And we like working on alt space, so I know a lot of us all meet as avatars on alt space. But I'm here because I'm curious to learn more about brands and what the buzz is and current trends, and trying to just absorb as much as I can. And I love these ladies as leaders in the industry, and following a lot of the people here has just been really exciting. So happy to sit in and learn more from y'all.
Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. Lots to learn from you too, because you specialize on more of like the entertainment side of that, which a lot of brands are tied to also.
Yeah. Music, concerts, entertainment, and also conferences. Like Chris and I have produced a couple different conferences. We do panel events and things like that. But we're dealing more with kind of sponsorships right now. But as much as I can learn. And this music, the Meta Music Festival that we're planning, is also going to be in coordination with ASCAP. So that's like a recent new partnership that we're really super excited about. And ASCAP is one of the performance rights organizations here in the United States with million members, and the musicians also want to be tapping into the brands and NFTs and fashion and merchandise and things like that. So
yeah, absolutely. I mean, talk about like engagement and socialization and all those things. Like, it's things like what you are doing that help brands achieve some of those things within these mediums, you know. So that's a really important aspect to brand engagement, bringing people into a space together, to enjoy different things together. Yeah.
Something I'm really concerned about is that the metaverse is going to get like overrun and just turn into this giant billboard, right? Like, we do not want that to happen. We want people to feel like they can come in and hang out and not be bombarded, right? We want to find, it's going to be my mission to find like a happy medium, like something where people can not feel like they're just being attacked by advertisements and brands wanting to like propel companies, and I want to try to make it more fun and interactive and funny and playful. I think that that's going to be a big part of what's happening here, so people feel a little more welcome when they come in, and feel more at home and less like they're being attacked. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I think like ideally, and this is obviously what like immersive mediums and 3D content is great for, is that we don't have to have advertising in the form of billboards anymore. It's, again, it comes down to utility. Like, we want people to engage and interact with the brand's products or services in a very organic way. Things that like drive that they're, it's not just an ad, but they're engaging with them. They're having this immediate, value when they're engaging with them. It provides them some kind of like entertainment value or whatever other kind of value that they're the brand's trying to get out of it. But it doesn't need to be a billboard anymore. We're going to place these objects in an environment and have you interact with these objects in an environment in the most organic way possible, as you would potentially in real life. That it doesn't feel like it's a targeted ad towards you, but it's something that's going to add immediate value as you are engaging with those products or services.
I also think the human element, I've been a big fan of this when you're in the metaverse. When it's, for instance, I perform as a DJ, and I have a couple avatars that I use to DJ with, but I also like having my human form come in as a video feed. I think the human element is really important. My team also produced the Act Now VR experience. We worked with United Nations on this kind of bringing more activism into the metaverse. And we had specifically trained avatar attendees to greet people as they were coming into the world in alt space and orient them. We tried to make sure that everyone we got was really friendly. And the goal was to get people to sign up for the Act Now campaign for the Sustainable Development Goals. So it's like UN's not exactly a brand, but it was kind of like a good example of like having really friendly team of avatar staff that was onboarded and trained very specifically, because we were working with the UN. We had to have very strict protocols that we were working with. But yeah, I think the human element is also going to be so important.
Yeah, absolutely.
And even touching on the UN part, the sustainability, like that's a whole conversation that, stemming from purchasing and tying those SDGs back to the brands and the companies that are producing products and physical goods are. That component can be built into that user journey of knowledge about the brand. So there's just another piece of that story there. I'm conscious of time as well. I wanted to check in with you, Sophia, because we only have like 15 minutes left. But
yeah. Let's get Jonathan. I know he has his hand up. Let's get his comments, and then we can continue with your with whatever you had to present at the end. Yeah.
Sure. Go ahead.
I'll make it brief. I just had a comment on the billboards because it's funny that there's a billboard ad network here in the audience, so it's funny to talk about that. But back when we kind of did the first in WebXR, in WebVR poster in Barista Express, we noticed that WebXR or VR ads are actually way less intrusive, because like just looking out of the call booth here, I see like some advertisement for a soft drink, and it's just natural. We're used to this all around us in the entire way. And like, of course, Celeste, when you say bombard, we want to avoid that. But like having a poster somewhere where it is natural, like for example, in a game that's about making coffee, and then you just like have a cafe, and of course there's posters hanging there. That is actually like way more like acceptable as a user than it is having like mobile ads like block half of your screen or something like that, or some pop-up on a website that annoys you, or like something that actually steals from the real estate, visual real estate that you have. But in VR, you have basically infinite of that virtually, because you can just like add more walls and so on. So just to soften that a bit, there is a way to have natural ads in VR, I believe. But of course, like overdoing it would cause like this bombarding experience, certainly.
Yeah, it's about the creativity and how you put those placements in your world, right? You have 360 degrees. Maybe it's like a tree is an ad for all you know. If you make it cool, then and it sends a message, hey, that's great, it works. And this is creativity becomes a huge piece of the design component of the immersive space.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, if I might just add one thing, I think we kind of think of them as like portals to different experiences. So if it's I think billboard is probably the wrong term. Like it's a poster where that you can actually walk inside into a different immersive experience that a brand might create for themselves. And I think we see some of that happening in like Decentraland and crypto voxels already. But those are kind of one-off stand-ups. But yeah, hopefully we don't see the bombardment. And I think we're pretty mindful of that.
Yeah, I mean, I think like Julie said, it's all highly dependent on our creativity, which is why I'm glad that it is, the creators and developers of the world that are informing agencies rather than other way around, because we know the true capabilities of this medium and how to leverage them properly. And we think about representation in these mediums in different ways than traditional agencies might. So I think it's really important, experiences that I've had with agencies, I think it's very important that we help guide and lead a little bit, especially when we're talking to like third-party agencies that are then informing brands. We don't want misinformation going to the brand, and so it's important for us to like handhold as much as possible, give as much free information as we can, be that consultant or that psychologist, therapist, like Alan was saying, to our clients, to make sure that they have the correct expectations and what can be done, and how these mediums should be utilized in a way that's going to give them the best return on their investments. So yeah. All right. I know we only have a little over 10 minutes left, and I know Julie has some things she'd like to present. She's been taking notes, called sense making is what we've termed them, these notes on every summit and town hall that we've done. So she's basically summed up all the conversations into something that's really cool and digestible. So take it away, Julie.
All right. So it's not done yet, but the first ask I'm going to ask of everybody that's here, the purple boxes over here, I'm going to make a list of all the different tools that everybody's talked about, including your companies, right? So do me a favor, if you want your company in here, drop the name and the website link to your website, and I'll copy and paste that, and that can be part of this takeaway, is just everybody's companies here. I've already got Wonderland Engine, I've got my Metaverse Engine and 3D Creator Tool, Dreamland XR, Construction Arcade, that shouldn't be in there. But I'll drop in whoever else is here that just wants to share their resource. So this mural board I created will be available. Everybody can take a look afterwards. I just, what I do is I kind of just listen to everybody, and I put together some boxes of lessons from today, test and learn. Companies want private spaces to learn and develop, get the brand goals, create 3D assets, convert the brands, consumer loyalty engagement, graphic realism expectation over functionality, consider your marketplace, social media is important, brands need to gain the trust, are your customers ready yet, everything has to be utility. Communities rally around brands. Building out ongoing experiences. Payments and browsers are still tricky. Make it funny and playful. There's a couple other lessons there. I did another section on experiences of what things to build out, making sure they're accessible, building out the payment rails, the UX, the UI, what's old is new again, get to know the product, create the FOMO, put ads in the world. I've got a few duplicates here, sorry. Work in progress, build as you fly, right? And then down here, just some notes on production, building out the story, put yourself into the scene, set the expectations both on functional and visual, make it interactive, taking a product, making it into 3D, and then some solutions. I did another one here just on, converting your 3D products to files, creating your digital assets, your digital twins, focusing on UI and UX. The web makes it easy to redefine the brick and mortar stores, deployment accessible. Those are just some of my notes. I don't know if it makes sense to anybody else, but at least it's a little bit of kind of what was talked about today that I kind of translated. So hope that was okay for everybody. And then Pat, that's it for my sense making today. As I said, I think we're going to share that out in the Discord channel that we have for the brand summit, right, Sophia? I think we can do that. And then next we're going to go through these slides, but I see Jonathan's got his hand up. Did I miss anything, or do you want me to add anything?
No, that was great. That was a applaud, but it looks very much like the raised hand icon. Thank you very much for those.
Oh, I see. That's awesome. Thank you. I appreciate that. So Sophia, I've got some slides here. Let's go through them, and we can just talk about who's going to be on the panels next week. Right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Go ahead. I'll play it and you can talk.
Sure. These are just some of the people that will be speaking next week. And we have a lot more to showcase as the days go by. But we heard from Elijah from Zesty Marketplace, who will be talking about ad tech and monetization, the future of virtual commerce.
You got Tony Parisi's coming in, right? And
yeah, I'm very excited for that. And then Will Connect is with Wendell August Forge, who is taking their physical products into the metaverse, the 100-year-old metal forging company. So that's a good use case right there. Selling real world fashion and luxury, Val Vicente and Briar Prestige will be coming on and talking about that. Alan Smithson, whom we all heard from today. The metaverse built a mall, 100 million. What is it? 100 million square feet?
100 million square feet. We're in the process of building that out with our V2 game engine that has all the things that we talked about today. So if you want to check that out, Alan will be doing a demo with the multiplayer functionality. So yeah. Cool. And then you're going to be talking to Amy Peck.
Amy Peck, Fireside Chat. We had a brief just recap call of kind of what we're going to be talking about, and basically this idea of like what we started with in this conversation, like when clients ask where to start and how to build a metaverse, what are the things that they should be thinking about, what are the right expectations that we should put in place for them, and how to get them to ask the right questions. What happens on the headset stays on the headset. So we're talking about, data and privacy and all these things, all the things that we want to be cautious of and conscious of when building out these capabilities in these different platforms and worlds. Kent Bai, Avi, who's been on these calls with us as well. Go ahead.
Yeah. Sorry. There you go.
Yeah, I know we only have a few minutes. Facilitating branded events. A lot of people here in the event space.
That's a packed panel. That's a packed panel with a whole bunch of producers.
Yeah. And so Daniel Dybowski Bryant, who I'm not sure if he's still on the call, but he was earlier. This is a perfect panel to kind of lead into the production summit that's going to be happening in October. So definitely stay tuned for announcements on the town hall and registration for the production summit as well. So
that's going to be a great day, October 13th, right? So hold that date, save that date. It'll be a full firehouse of information on how to produce all of these experiences that we keep talking about. So yeah, it'll be a good one.
Check the chat. The production summit is October 6th. Production summit town hall is October 6th, and the production summit itself is the 13th. I'm putting links to tickets. And
awesome.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. And then, yeah, I'm going to, I'm going to be doing my sense making that day. So I'll be taking notes from the start until the finish, and that'll be really good. And then excited about this one, right, Sophia?
Yeah, this is Metaverse's client, Hilti, and we actually go through the experience, the world that Metaverse built for Hilti, kind of demonstrating their whole brand guidelines pretty much in 3D. And there's a lot to it, and it's super, super interesting, super cool. So there'll be some visuals there to go along with our interview.
I think we went through that one, and then I've just got the WebXR Brand Summit promo page for next week. We've got agencies, we've got Ready Player Golf that's supporting us, and Big Rock Creative. There's some great names in there. So we're looking forward to seeing everybody next week for this next event. And if you have any questions, I just pulled this up quickly. I hope everybody went to our website. This is where Ben's going to release the town hall schedule through this location. And this is a great example of WebXR. I'm on the web and I'm interacting with this world. So anyways, it's gonna be
we have a lot more panels and speakers and all that stuff, waiting on a couple more confirmations before we release to the wild. So what we have presented have been all of the full confirmed panels, but there's a lot more that we will be talking through during the summit, because it is a 9-hour day. So we do hope that you guys can join us.
Get your snacks, get your water. Oh, things, all your chargers, your chargers, your power pack.
That's right.
Always be charging, ABC.
I love it.
And I was thinking, I'm not sure about POX. I'm thinking POX might be a little bit better. POX or POX, I'm not sure. So, but the proof of experience, I think that's a huge takeaway today, just of how to get, how to get brands.
How about pokes?
Pokes?
P-O-E-X, pokes. Poke around in space.
Poke around in your experience. Poke.
P-O-E-X.
Could be too. Well, with that, maybe we sign off. That was a perfect way, right? Are you going to be there next week, Daniel? Yes, of course. You're on panel.
Absolutely, yeah, on a panel and in the green room.
Awesome. And we have so many places to watch it, right, Sophia?
Yeah, just like we do with all of our summits and our Polly's WebXR award show, we will have multiple watch parties. Both, you can watch it from YouTube Live. I don't know if there's a Zoom. Is there a Zoom stream?
Not next week. It's
no Zoom for the summit.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, Twitch. There'll be a bunch of watch parties in our metaverse worlds and Engage.
AWE Live.
AWE Live. Yeah, there you go. Engage, our Ready Player Golf Clubhouse. XR Woman.
XR Women Museum. Yeah, I just dropped a link in there too. If anybody wants to take a quick peek at the XR Women Museum, that's a great WebXR experience. I dropped the link. It's a place where we built our co-founders with Karen and Jenna Lambert. They designed a space to inspire learning, and it's a gallery of all the amazing XR women that have spoken in the last almost 100 events that we've had. So take a poke in there, because that's you create. You're there, and you can open up your webcam. You can communicate. So maybe ask somebody to meet you there. it's a cool space to get started. So yeah.
Yep. Our Polly's World and Alt space. And I'm sure these will all be listed on the Eventbrite page during the time of the show. So definitely hop around. That's the most fun part about watching these events in immersive spaces. So try out all of them. Yeah. Any final words from anybody else?
Go WebXR.
Go WebXR.
For the win.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us. I'm just going to say, Albert, I love your facial expression in this show. I'll finish off with that. Did you want to say a quick hi? Because I know you haven't had a chance to say hello today.
Hello, everybody.
Hi.
Hi, you guys can hear me?
Yes, we can. Yes, we can. But it's great to see you today. And thanks for joining us. I know I've seen you all day today, and I think you've got an avatar on your face. So I'm not sure if anybody else figured that one out, but
oh, he does. That's super realistic.
Yeah, it's my avatar that I designed. So I just use this to basically promote my offerings, and I think it's better to show, improve than to just talk about it.
100%.
You got it.
I didn't even notice that.
Yeah, it's amazing. I was going to see if anybody else noticed, but you know,
I just noticed he never blinked.
That's awesome.
Just blink.
Well, I have to jump to the next meeting. Thanks very much, everybody. I'm looking forward to seeing everybody next week. Thanks, Sophia.
All right.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.
All right, see you guys at the next summit.
Sounds good.